and welcome to another edition of the XP Billionaires podcast. This is Rayfe and I am here to give you all the words related to RPG gaming. Now, I can't do this alone, of course, so of course I have my co-host, Sky Knight. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm pretty good, pretty good.
Awesome, sounds good. And unfortunately, we do not have Irene Rogue today. They're not feeling too great. So, uh, that being said, we do have a very special guest with us today. We have the Feminist Gamer. We have Melissa. How are you doing today?
Hey, good. Thanks so much for having me, you guys.
Yeah, thank you for coming back. You've been with us once before, so we're always happy to have you come back on. So, for those who haven't listened or who have forgotten because it was so long ago, why don't you just give us a quick blurb of what you're doing on the internet?
Yeah, so I am behind the Feminist Gamer. It's a space to explore feminist issues and LGBT issues in gaming specifically. And I am the GM of Darkness and Dragons, which is an actual play recording that we do every week on Twitch, Wednesday nights at 6:30. So yeah, check it out.
Awesome, awesome. I will check it out at some point, but unfortunately, I stream usually those nights, so I do have to miss them. So I'm hoping we can see them pre-recorded afterwards.
Absolutely, yeah. We have them up on YouTube and we also put them up on our podcast. So check out on wherever you get those podcasts.
Awesome, awesome. That's fantastic. All right. So there's a very, very special reason we brought Mel on because this week we are doing one of our franchise talk episodes. So this is where we discuss a particular RPG series with essentially no filter. So that being said, if you haven't played the games in this specific series, be prepared for surprises and spoilers coming out of nowhere. We still do try to mitigate them, but in this kind of episode, it just happens. So be prepared for that. But that being said, we are going to be talking about the Persona series this week.
Yay!
Yay!
Yeah.
Mel and I became friends because we bonded over Persona. This is a thing that happened. So
It's so good. There's so much. I'm sorry if there's spoilers, but I haven't even played all the games. Like I've played basically every spin-off they've had since 3, and I'm still have not got to all of them.
so
Yeah, no, they're definitely awesome. But for those of you who have been living under a rock and don't know much about the Persona series, we'll give you some quick backstory regarding the series itself. So, Persona is a spin-off to the Shin Megami Tensei franchise, and in true fashion, it takes real-world situations and throws it into some sort of demonic chaos. The first game was released to Western audiences in 1996 as Revelations Persona for the PS1. The game was horribly altered by way of whitewashing, and I do believe there was a little blackface involved.
yeah, somehow they managed both.
Yeah,
So,
it was not
not
great.
good.
Later releases of the game for the PlayStation Portable didn't do this. They actually released it in its truest form. So, we got to be at least thankful for that. Now, with the release of Persona 3, the game format was changed drastically. While there was still an RPG style dungeon element to the game, it also included a day-to-day life simulator where you would go to school, participate in club activities, make new friends, and so on. This also did add serious but attainable deadlines for story progression. So I know there's always some people who are a little leery towards that kind of method of progression, but I honestly never had a problem with them. So, okay. So that being said, let's get started with a little bit of fun discussion. Let's start. Let's start with our favorite Persona game in the series. So, Mel, why don't you start us off?
So this is like one of the hardest questions I've been asked in a while. I sat down and thought about it, and I think if you had to force me to pick, I'm gonna have to say 3. I love the plot. I love the way it deals with the overall themes of the shadows and that it really digs into the background of all those things. the implications of being a Persona user, and the characters just feel like they're dealing with a lot more than some of the later games. 4 is more about, solving a murder, and there's certainly an element of, at the end of getting kind of a bigger worldview, but 3 is very much like the world is at stake. What are we going to do? That said, Persona 4 probably has my favorite characters. I just love that group of fun guys. And then 5 is just like the style and the combat, like they've just really perfected it by then. So I think they all have their part, but like, oh, don't dismiss 3 because it's old. It's so good.
That it is.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Like the third game definitely felt like more was at stake, especially just with the overall plot. And I felt that the plot itself tied much better to the theme than the other games did as well. For me, 3 was also my favorite as well. It was one of the best tellings of the fool's journey. So from the very start of the game right up to its inevitable conclusion, if you understand the journey itself, it dealt with the topic of death in an incredibly real way. Well, as real for Shin Megami Tensei as possible. And I think there was a lot more, especially in the later half of the game. I think there was the party itself dealt with the ramifications of their own mortality and the end of the world in a way that, I don't know, it just worked incredibly well.
Well, they dealt with it very realistically, like how you would expect people to potentially react in that situation. And that made it feel all the more real.
Mm-hmm. And I think another nice thing about the characters in that is not everybody's just kind of best friends. There's a lot of people within the party who have very complicated emotions and feelings about each other and their own connections beyond just you. And I think that's something that really, really stands out as something that sets 3 apart.
Mm-hmm. Like I found for myself as well, like Persona 3 is my favorite, no question. And it's funny how we all landed on the same one when I think the later games are probably more popular.
Mm-hmm.
But what I liked about Persona 3 especially is that it's the best of the new and the old when it comes to Persona, I find. It's got the better gameplay of the modern Personas and that sort of intense atmosphere of a Shin Megami Tensei game. Like just that constant dread and melancholy that you find in an SMT game. And I really like that. And like you both have said, like the theme, it is thematically extremely solid. Like the writing is so tight when it comes to the theme of death and the links to Greek mythology and all that sort of thing. So for me, it stands out above the rest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I like what you said there about the intense atmosphere of an SMT game. I had not thought about that, but like at the same time, I think about it now, and having I know the both of us have at least played SMT Nocturne, and I mean that game was intense from the get-go. And I get that same kind of feel right at the start of Persona 3, right at that opening scene where, the Dark Hour just shows up out of nowhere. The protagonist is on the train and he's just not affected by it. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's just so completely, there is something wrong with this kid.
He just walks to his dorm like it's the most normal thing in the world, and it's just the most eerie, creepy, unsettling world.
Yeah, and then when you just realize that he's just been going through this for years, every night, it doesn't phase him anymore. He's just gotten so used to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane. Like, it hits you in this way. It's like, how are you still mentally stable?
Yeah, that's an excellent point because like how long has he been noticing the Dark Hour? Has it been since
It would have been since how do we say those spoilers? Since the incident on the bridge.
Yes. Which is he was quite young if memory serves. Like
I think like a
that's
toddler maybe?
I thought he was older than that, but you
Maybe,
know
or
what?
10?
I will go. Yeah, I was thinking more around the age of 10 or 11, but I'm gonna Google it.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like it's been as long as the kid who shows up in his Pharaoh's. He's about 10, right?
Yeah, yeah, that because that would have been about the point where he was born.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would actually make a lot of sense.
It's been about 10 years.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because the incident that created Tartarus and the Dark Hour happened 10 years prior to the game, if I remember it right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm reading's indicating. So, yeah, a little bit younger than I thought, but not as young as a
Yeah.
toddler.
And then you get also the implications of some of the other characters about how they started seeing what was going on. And even Mitsuru like saw some stuff pretty young and took a lot of, I assume, trauma from knowing kind of the connection her family has to what happened to the world.
Yeah, that's a big thing with her character.
So yeah, okay, so we've all landed on, like you said, we also landed on the same game, Persona 3. I admittedly wasn't sure. I'll be honest, Sky, I was expecting something like Innocent Sin from you, but
Don't get me wrong, I love Innocent Sin, but nothing it doesn't even come close to P3.
no, fair enough. I mean, P3 was my first Persona game, and now that I think about it, it might have actually been my first SMT game.
Definitely was for me.
I think it was for me as yeah.
Yeah, because I don't think we started collecting the other ones until after we tried it.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember picking up Persona 3 almost on a whim and not not expecting to love it as much as I did.
Yeah, well, you know what, and that's the beauty of it. You know, this is something that we recommend as the XP billionaires. When if you're out there and you decide to make a purchase on a whim, don't be afraid to do that every now and again. You know, obviously, you know, do it within your budget, of course, but you will be surprised on so many occasions, especially with RPGs, when you make that whimsical purchase.
Yeah, there's some great lesser known titles out there, and sometimes you just got to take a leap.
Absolutely. So yeah, so one of you was saying, I don't remember who, and I apologize for that, but we were saying that there's been a surge of Persona's popularity over the last few years with some of the later on games, to the point where I think there's some people out there who actually don't know that it's a spin-off series. So I wanted to ask you guys, what is it about the Persona series that makes it stand out over other SMT games or even other RPG series in general?
That's a great question. So, I mean, the I started playing all the Persona games, love them, played pretty much every one I could find. Very hard to find Innocent Sin and things like that when I was first looking, although now it's become a little bit easier. And then the only Shin Megami Tensei game I've played is Digital Devil Saga, which is pretty intense. There's definitely some similarities in some of the gameplay. And it's very post-apocalyptic with this kind of end of the world virus theming. And I found honestly that like the thing that I think Persona really does that helps out that gameplay and that heaviness is that you still have kind of a normal life. So you get kind of this really intense chunk of time, and then you get like a more relaxed studying for exams, nothing too heavy, and then you go back to fighting monsters. So it's always there in the back of your head, but there's not that same everything is horrible every minute of every day and we're all going to die in the end. You get these characters that you get to grow and learn about, and you're caring about them on a personal level. And even though you fight monsters and shadows, and you know, at the end of the game, you are getting to know people for who they are, for better or worse. For example, one of the characters that I really didn't like when I first were playing one of the Persona games was the Devil Arcana and the Nurse in Persona 4. And by the end of it, I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe I don't hate her so much. And I think being able to take those breaks from the intensity really, really helps the overall flow.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. I mean, sometimes something can really drag if it just stays in, the dark and intense for too long. And one of the things about SMT generally is that the older, sort of more old school SMT games are not very character focused. Like I would say even Digital Devil Saga is more character focused than than some of the other SMT titles, including Nocturne, which I love to death. And I've gathered as much about some of the other titles. I've sort of poked my nose in at some of them, but haven't gone too deep into them yet.
Yeah, well, I can at least say, like, I've played through the Devil Summoner games, or at least the Raito Kuzunoha titles for the PS2 all the way through. Raito is a bit of a blank slate because he's another silent protagonist, and honestly, he just comes off as a man of few words. So there's not a lot of building there, and even Narumi and the people around him don't. I find they don't do a whole lot to develop or to build that. They're really more set dressing than anything else. So I think that point is still correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and I only played a little bit of the first Raito game, but I very much gathered that it's a plot focused game, but not a character focused game. And so and I think that can often be the case with SMT games. And Persona is a big exception in that way.
Yeah, yeah. Now there was Devil Summoner Soul Hackers, which was originally PS1. That one was a little bit more character driven from the Devil Summoner series. I remember playing some of the remake when it came out for the 3DS, and it felt a little more character heavy in some cases too. So at least at one point they went that route.
Yeah, yeah. Persona is where they really just sort of threw their eggs in that basket and ran for it.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. So, Sky, do you have anything to add about Persona?
Well, I think one of the strengths of Persona, in terms of, why it's popular, is simply that it's more accessible to a wider audience. And one of the reasons why it's more accessible is simply because they're easier games. Not that they're easy games. I'm not saying that. But SMT games are generally pretty freaking hard. Looking at you, Devil Survivor.
Yeah, like if you sort of don't level up in the right way, or you're just, just don't have that one ability you need, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
In Persona, you can kind of brute force your way through, even if you don't have the right persona sometimes.
It's not, they're not easy games, but on the other hand, honestly, I had a much harder time getting through something like Nocturne with its brutal dungeons and that sort of thing, like where you can die very easily too. I think they're probably easier than some of the other spin-offs as well. So, that's a big part of it. But also because they are more character focused, like we've been talking about, they're also more story focused. And they're stylish. They're fun. That appeals to people.
Yeah, and I think they do a really good job of, even in some of the, I guess, the spin-off games, really capturing the tone of the characters. Like in Dancing All Night, you can play as the villain of the story, and the way that he moves is just unsettling. And it's really interesting to see that, like, the character is carried through the movements that he makes. It's just like there's just little details of character stuff that just is really, really well done.
I think a part of it for me had to do with the fact that the Shin Megami Tensei demons are your personas rather than your enemies or antagonists that drive the story in any way. Like for me, initially, a game with a heavy religious or myth-based focus honestly doesn't pique my interest the same way as high school kids solve a horrific murder mystery or high schoolers become criminals who steal people's hearts. like if I didn't already know what Shin Megami Tensei was, I mean the concept of God and Lucifer having a pissing contest on Earth seems funny but less interesting. It's been done before. Like I see it in my television, I see it in my movies, I see it in my comics. Like that's the same old story. So the fact that they're able to jazz it up for me it gives me a little bit more interest in trying the game out.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, like you look at something like Persona 3 with it's you have to dig for that myth-based focus. Like it's not immediately apparent, it's not on the surface. Even in Nocturne, it was more, it was more obvious what was going on. I mean, the for God's sake, the original title, right? Was it the original title or was it the other title? I can't remember. But it's also known as Lucifer's Call. Hello.
We're all clearly fans of the series, and having followed it as long as we have, we've seen what the company has done for each game and how they've made it new and exciting. What are you guys looking forward to seeing in future games of the series, or what would you like to see in those future games?
LGBTQ relationships. I need them. Please.
Yes.
Please.
Yes.
My protagonist in 5, particularly, was definitely in love with the magician, and you cannot convince me otherwise. I don't care that you don't give me an option. They just have too good chemistry, and come on. Just let us do it.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like, I should not have to look all the way back to Innocent Sin for a queer relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
Now, I ship Tatsuya and Jun to the moon, but give us more. We need more. Come on, people.
So much more. It's just, I don't know. It just, I really appreciate that they did kind of a remake of 3 where you could play the female protagonist, but you again could only date the male characters. Then it's like you already wrote the plot. Just give it to me.
Yeah, exactly.
It just gets me sometimes when games put, like, I get writing more romances maybe is more work, but when it's not more work, when you're artificially putting a limit, it's just like, come on, stop doing that.
Yeah, they need to realize that, this just isn't cool anymore to leave leave queer people out of these stories, particularly when there's so much obvious room for it.
Mm-hmm.
Can you be any more queer baity to call back to your first appearance on this podcast?
Yes. I need you to canonize it. Canonize something.
Please.
But
Oh
yeah, I mean,
God.
like, I don't know. It feels like they do so many other things that are kind of questionable, right? Like you can date your teachers and you can sleep with like women twice your age. And it's like, really, is this going to be the problem? Is this the line you draw? Because you're not drawing any other lines in the sand.
Yeah, they're really not.
I don't know. I wanted something a little bit more mechanical in my future games myself. I mean, I'm all for the mechanics. Like, yes, all of your points are 100% valid. Give everyone the choice. No harm, no foul. Just do it. That's fine. But honestly, what I really want, I want to bring back a protagonist that can wield any weapon. That's I missed that about Persona 3, and when P3P decided to not include that and just keep him with a one-handed sword, I was a little upset. I loved running around with punching gloves in P3. I thought that was awesome. It was so much fun. And I want that flexibility in my next protagonist. Like, that was the other thing about Persona 3 that I really liked, is that, the main characters in the series are always a jack of all personas, but, the P3 protagonist was the only jack of all trades. And I miss that.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. I mean, it makes a big difference. Mathematically, it's just a different, setup, but like it's just a little animation difference, but like it really helps you make that character your own.
It does, and that really helped me out. Like, I had built my P3 protagonist, like, by the end game. I had Melchizedek was his like top persona, who is this really cool looking angel with like a full face mask kind of thing, just cut with no features on it. But he was definitely a fist fighter. He had this fist mastery, so I was doing amazing extra damage with wielding fists. Like, oh my god, like I was one-shotting so many guys near end game. It was wonderful. I found a way to break the game for myself, and I'm really sad I couldn't do that as easily in any other game.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, flexibility is always good. Customization is always good.
Yeah.
It just makes the experience all the more interesting. So yeah, I'm game for that.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
You've got 3 signatures on your list.
That's you know what? That's a start. I will take that. Absolutely. Yeah. You know what? We've got quick time. I've one last quick question for you guys. What non-Persona RPG would you recommend to a Persona fan?
I'm gonna go off book because I hadn't answered this, and then as we were talking, I remembered another game that I love that I think more people should play, and that's Star Ocean. The Star Ocean series is really, really good. It's a Square Enix game, so if you're already a fan of their products, it's maybe a little bit of an easy entry point. But specifically, I love Till the End of Time. I think it's super fun. It's kind of got 3 phases of the game where like you start off on like this planet and you're fighting kind of normal monsters and you crash your ship there. So in the second phase you're in space, but you already learned to use a sword, so you might as well keep doing it. And then you're kind of, and I won't spoil the last kind of phase because it's definitely a spoiler, but it's a really, really fun game that's got a lot of really cool characters and yeah, really builds to this like big epic finale.
It's interesting you mentioned that one because I remember trying it a long time ago and I was not feeling it for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know why. I mean, it's something I might someday try to revisit, but like the time I played it, I don't know, there was something about it that was just not doing it for me. And maybe it was just a sign of the times, like I need to go and actually revisit it. But yeah, I just remember having, and it wasn't that I just wasn't hard. I wasn't finding the story as compelling. Maybe I just didn't get far enough into it.
Yeah, and I would say it does definitely have a slow start, like kind of Final Fantasy games in general, until you get kind of to the planet and you've met Nell and you've got kind of your 3 main party members. It's a little bit kind of like I'm crashed on this planet and what am I doing? And until he really commits to the story, it is a little bit slow. But like you start getting these other characters that are coming in from different worlds and like it really, really builds up in a beautiful way.
That's Star Ocean 3, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they're all good, but like 3 is just it's got my heart.
No, fair enough. And
And
yeah,
it's an older game now. It's like oh god,
PS2.
15
Yeah.
years old.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's weird to be able to say that about some of the games I've played. Like I can like Final Fantasy VI alone. I mean, that one's over 20 now, and I remember playing that one when it was new. That's how old I am, people. Yeah. All right, Sky. What would you suggest to people?
I'm going to suggest Fire Emblem Three Houses.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, the combat's so very different. It's got that sort of school atmosphere, the socialization kind of stuff going on. It's got some little mini games in the school setting. It's a beautiful game with different ways you can take the story. I think I think it's a good recommendation for a Persona fan. And if you're not used to that type of game, like a strategy RPG, this is actually not a bad way to try it out. It is easier than other Fire Emblem games, and it does have difficulty settings
Mm-hmm.
and the ability to turn off permadeath. So,
Yeah, that's a really nice one. Like I'm a bit of a casual Fire Emblem player, and the fact that I can actually still play with my characters and don't have to lose them in a fight was a good
yeah.
and good reason to come on in.
Yeah, me too. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love some of the ones with permadeath, like Path of Radiance, as people who have regularly listened to the podcast know, I love Path of Radiance, but permadeath sucks.
Yeah, like my rule is like if when someone dies, I'm only getting less content. I don't want permadeath. Like if I can deal with the ramifications of someone in my party dying, cool, kill them off. I'm happy with it. But I want to do something with that, not just to have a spot missing in my party.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that makes total sense, and I completely agree with all of that. So that's yeah, I have nothing else to add there. But if I was going to suggest something to anybody, I'm taking a bit of a leap, but bear with me. My suggestion would be Code Vein. The setting of the world feels like it could exist in a Shin Megami Tensei world with only a few minor tweaks. That's how much I feel about it. And like
Yeah.
there is a very, very interesting way to build your relationship with your other characters. You're collecting their memories and then basically living through them, which is really interesting. And as you progress through the game and your friends start trusting you a little more, you get to learn their class by them allowing you to drink their blood.
They're vampires.
They're revenants, not vampires. It is technically the same thing, though.
Yes. Yes, it is. But yes, I agree. It's got this very, sort of post-apocalyptic, dark, intense, dramatic vibe that feels very SMT.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, if you need something and you really want to hate yourself for a while and you're sick of Dark Souls, play anime Dark Souls, or as we call it in real life, Code Vein.
Woot woot.
All right. Well, yeah, I think that's going to do it for our Persona talk for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Mel, I want to thank you again for coming on to the show. We always have tons of fun having you on, so we will definitely ask you to come on again in the future, I'm sure.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks again so much. I hope everybody enjoyed and will play many Persona games.
Yeah, so where can everyone find you on the social medias?
Pretty much all of my social media handles have Feminist Gamer in them to some degree, so check that out. And then if you're in a bit of a lurch, look for Darkness and Dragons, and everything is connected in through there. And like I said, YouTube, podcast, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all of those platforms.
Awesome. And we'll make sure to have all of those links available in the description of this podcast. So wherever you guys are listening to it, check the description and you'll be able to connect to her no problem. Sky, where can everyone find you?
I'm at SkyKnightXP on Twitter and Twitch, skyknight.xp on Instagram, and I stream on Twitch on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern.
Awesome. And as for me, you can find me on Twitter at Billionaires XP, or you can find me on Instagram or Twitch at Rayfe. My Twitch schedule has me every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern. And while she's not here, don't forget to check out Irene Rogue at irogue_XP. That's Twitter and Twitch. And Irene streams on Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern. So definitely check us all out while you can. We have wonderful time. Yeah, don't forget to check out our website for quickfire reviews, podcast news, and other written work. That's xpbillionaires.wordpress.com. And don't forget to check out our monthly newsletter on our coffee page, coffee.com/xpbillionaires. If you feel like donating, by all means, we'd love the support. And if not, we just love your support anyway, just because you're coming to check us out. So that's the best part of it all. So that's going to be it for us this week. And remember, we'll never put an evoker to your head, but we do want you to keep gaming. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.